Do you want to know how insurance companies end up paying for attorney's fees and costs and more, like in Amber Heard's case? Stay tuned! Hi there, my name is Katherine. I'm a lawyer and I also think differently. You're probably wondering, why is she inside a car? I'll tell you in a little bit. First, I want to tell you why I know what I'm about to tell you here. For over 12 years, I used to be a defense attorney. A defense attorney is someone who represents people who are getting sued. After that, I opened my own law firm and switched sides. I then became a plaintiff's attorney. A plaintiff's attorney is someone who represents people who are suing because they've been injured or they were wronged. What I'm about to tell you today comes from my experience as a defense attorney. I didn't know most of this before I became a lawyer, and what I'm about to tell you is not really common knowledge. But I think it's important for the public, such as yourself, to know because this is generally how it works if you have an insurance policy, such as a car insurance or a homeowner's insurance, a renter's insurance. Here, we'll use Amber Heard's case to explain how this whole thing works of being paid or your attorney's fees and costs being paid. So let's get started by answering some of your burning questions. The first one is likely, why is Amber Heard's insurance company paying for her attorney's fees and costs? Most insurance policies have that provision of duty to defend. For example, if you have homeowner's insurance policy, a renter's policy, or a car insurance policies, they likely have a duty to defend, meaning if someone sues you under that policy, then those insurance companies will provide you with a lawyer and they'll pay for your attorney's fees and attorney's costs. So go ahead and check out your insurance policy and see if that is provided for you. If not, then it might be a good idea to get that for you. For example, in Amber Heard's case, Traveler's Insurance is her homeowner's insurance. And it has a provision that if Amber Heard was to get sued for defamation, then the duty to defend in Traveler's Insurance policy was going to kick in. And here we saw how when Johnny Depp sued Amber Heard for defamation, Travelers then became under obligation to provide Amber Heard with a lawyer and to pay her lawyer's attorney fees and attorney's costs. Now, I know that there is two insurance companies at issue here for Amber Heard. One is the Traveler's Insurance and the other one is New York Marine. I also know that there's a lawsuit between Travelers and New York Marines, and there's a lawsuit between New York Marines suing Amber Heard. For this video, we will talk about Traveler's Insurance for now to keep things simple. I will go ahead and cover those insurance cases or insurance litigation in another video. One terminology that's really important for us to understand before we move on is the term insured. Insured means the person or the company that is covered by the insurance policy. For example, Amber Heard is the insured of Travelers. That means that Travelers Insurance has an obligation of a duty to defend its insured, aka Amber Heard. I mentioned earlier that Amber Heard's insurance company might be on the hook even more than the attorney's fees and costs. That's because insurance provisions usually also have a duty to indemnify. A duty to indemnify in the most simplistic term means that Travelers has to pay any settlement, any judgment, or any jury verdict that is rendered against Amber Heard. Here, Amber Heard's insurance company, Travelers, could be on the hook to pay up to $10.35 million, which is the jury verdict. Whether or not they will be on the hook for that maximum amount depends a lot on the legalities that happened before trial or even during trial, which I won't discuss in this video because it makes things more complicated, and I really want to make this video as simple as possible regarding the basics of insurance coverage. But just know that Travelers has a duty to indemnify Amber Heard at a certain amount. It could be up to Travelers policy's insurance policy limits, loss, and I believe that policy limit is about $500,000 or up to the 10.35 million jury verdict. How does Travelers choose the attorney that Amber Heard will have to defend her in her lawsuit, such as the lawsuit of Johnny Depp against her for defamation? The answer really depends on Amber Heard's insurance policy. Most insurance policies have provision that says you can choose who your lawyers would be. But if your insurance policy doesn't have that provision, the policy would instead say that whoever the attorney that the insurance company chooses for you, then that will be who your lawyer is. And in the usual sense, most people don't choose their own attorneys because they don't know any other attorneys that would be good to represent them. That's why they allow their insurance companies to assign to them a lawyer, and that's perfectly fine. It's actually pretty much most of what happens. Most insurance companies prefer that they assign the lawyer to you. Why? That's because the lawyers that insurance companies assign to you have been through rigorous set of interviews and forms that they have to apply to be on the panel of the insurance company. So for example, Travelers have a list of law firms or attorneys that are in their panel, and if someone is getting sued for defamation, then this law firm or lawyers will be assigned to that insured who are already under their panel of law firms. For a law firm to be recommended by an insurance company, they have to get into that list of panel of lawyers that the insurance companies recommend to their insured or assign to their insured. Another reason why insurance companies prefer that they assign the law firm for you is because the law firms that they select from their panel that I was talking to you about is because of the attorney's rate. That means the amount of hourly fee that the attorneys charge for that law firm. Those law firms who are in their insurance panels charge less according to their attorney's fees and costs per hour. Let me give you a hypothetical based on when I was working as a defense attorney. When a law firm is working on a case that is assigned by an insurance company, the lawyers would charge hypothetically $200 per hour, as opposed to if the same lawyers or law firm is being retained by a private individual, a private entity, or doing any work that has nothing to do with insurance companies, they could charge $400 per hour. So as you can see, the insurance companies would be charged $200 per hour for representing the insured as opposed to $400 per hour. That's 50% less. Why would law firms agree to that? That's because to be able to be on the panel of the insurance companies, those law firms have to agree to a much lower rate. And why would they want to be on the panel of the insurance companies? That's because if they are, then they can get more cases to work on, and they are basically using more volume, meaning more revenue or profit from the attorney's fees and costs that they can incur. But as you can see, they are also incurring it at a much lower rate. What does that mean in terms of the rate for Amber Heard's lawyers? Well, if Travelers was the one who chose the lawyers for her, the rates of those lawyers are likely less than if it's a lawyer that Amber Heard chose for herself. Let's say Elaine Bredehoff, my understanding, is a lawyer that Amber Heard chose for herself. I would assume that Elaine Bredehoff's fees are way more than if Travelers chose a lawyer from their list of panel. That's how that works. I don't know how much Elaine Bredehoff is charging per hour or Rottenborn is charging per hour. We don't know that yet. But based on the lawsuit between Travelers and New York Marines and New York Marines against Amber Heard, during the discovery phase, we'll probably find out more as to how much they are charging per hour if any of those information come out. Here's another insider scoop that most people don't know about. The amount of attorney's fees and costs that a law firm submits to the insurance company to be reimbursed or to be paid by the insurance company does not all get paid by the insurance company. What does that mean? For example, This hypothetical is based on my experience when I was a defense attorney. Let's assume that the law firm I'm working for is the law firm that is defending Amber Heard in the lawsuit. Let's say for this month alone, we billed $100,000 total of attorney's fees and costs, and we submit that to Travelers to get paid. That $100,000 bill does not get paid in full. Yes, the reason is because the insurance companies are usually very strict with what they will pay and why they would pay it. So they will go through the bills, the invoices, and see which one they'll approve and which one they won't approve. And so that 100,000 bill could be cut down even lower to, let's say, 75,000. So 25,000 of that bill has been cut out or not approved by the insurance company. What happens then? The law firm will be asking or appealing Travelers to pay the rest of the 25,000 that they disapproved. So they have to submit an appeal to Travelers. Usually it's a form and there's certain requirements and it's really tedious. I used to appeal some of my law firm's bills and it's really a pain. That's all I'm going to say. It's such a pain to appeal that and trying to justify why we did certain things to defend the insured, but they didn't pay us initially. So now we have to say additional proof that that was necessary for the defense of the insured. So what does that mean in terms of Amber Heard's case? My understanding, based on the last filing, Amber Heard's attorney's fees and costs are about $8 million. And if that is the amount that Travelers have paid so far, I could almost bet that $8 million was not really the amount that her law firm submitted to Travelers. That's just the amount that Travelers paid to her law firms. Those law firms probably billed way more than $8 million. I need to add this very important information. You might be wondering, do the insurance companies have any control over the litigation or the trial strategy? The answer is absolutely. That's why during the trial of Amber Heard, you saw Travelers Insurance Company's claim representative actually attend the trial with Amber Heard and her legal team. That is actually very common in the industry if the insurance company is defending that particular defendant. And here, Travelers was defending Amber Heard in the lawsuit against and by Johnny Depp. Another example is this. At the trial of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, the experts that you saw for Amber Heard had to have been approved by Travelers. What generally happens is this. The defense attorney would have submitted to Travelers a request for approval or a status report asking Travelers to approve a list of experts that they have that they want to retain for Amber Heard with their CV, meaning curriculum vitae, with their rates, with the retainer fee, because most experts ask for a retainer amount that is in the thousands and also charge a lot per hour. That's why the law firms would need the approval of the insurance company because hiring experts costs a lot of money, not just in preparation for trial, but even when they start testifying at trial. Another big question I'm getting is, since Amber Heard was found by the jury to be liable because of actual malice, does that mean Travelers will now pay for her attorney's fees and also pay for the jury verdict or the judgment of $10.35 million? The answer is it depends how the appeal will go. Most insurance provisions have a limitation or an exclusion that if the lawsuit against you finds you to have done an intentional conduct or an actual malice, such as the case here with Amber Heard, then the insurance company is no longer liable to pay for your attorney's fees and costs, and also no longer liable to pay for the judgment against you. It's basically public policy so that people who commit intentional act or actual malice don't get the benefit of an insurance policy and hide behind an insurance policy party and just be able to do something as nefarious as doing actual malice. That's why Amber Heard is trying to appeal this case as well, because if she wins the appeal and the actual malice part gets reversed by the Court of Appeal, then Travelers and any other insurance company involved in paying for her, and I'm talking about New York Marines, then they may be on the hook to pay for attorney's fees and costs and the $10.35 million, depending on what happens on appeal. If the appellate court reverses the actual malice, then now she's not liable for actual malice. Then that means the case will probably be retried, or the Court of Appeal will have a different instruction. But whatever it is if the actual malice is no longer applicable, then Travelers or New York Marines or both could be on the hook for the attorney's fees and also the $10.35 million. That's it for now, guys. Tune in for part 2 of this analysis of insurance coverage. I'll talk about the actual lawsuit between Travelers and New York Marines, and New York Marines versus Amber Heard. I mentioned earlier that I'll explain why I'm recording here in the car. The reason is because my kiddo is sick today. I did not want to drive to the office because I want to be available for my son. So I'm recording it inside my car in our driveway because my kiddo is sleeping inside the house and I don't want him to hear me as I talk because I get really excited and loud. Also, too, I want to be close so that if he wakes up and needs me, then I could just go inside. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and again, tune in for part 2. If you learned something new, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any questions, let me know. Subscribing to our channel will really help us create more videos for you and answer your questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Bye!